My sister humiliated me in front of my entire family. Still single? No husband, no kids. And my parents actually laughed. I walked out that night feeling worthless, but what they didn't know was that I was about to rebuild myself completely. And 1 month later, when I walked back into that house, they didn't even recognize the woman standing in front of them. Leah Morgan had always loved her family, despite their quirks, their criticisms, and their occasional blind judgment. Growing up, she had learned to laugh at herself, to brush off the small digs, the pointed comments, the subtle comparisons to her sister, Chloe. But tonight was different. Tonight, she felt an unease she couldn't shake. It wasn't like she had planned to overthink her 28th birthday. After all, birthdays were supposed to be simple, small celebrations. But something about the text from Chloe that morning unsettled her. Hope you don't show up looking sad and pathetic this year. Can't wait to see you. Leah stared at the screen, the words mocking her even as she reread them. She knew Chloe well enough to recognize the sneer hidden in the casual wording. It wasn't just Chloe, it was the pattern she'd carried her whole life. Whenever Leah's accomplishments or milestones didn't match the mold Chloe thought appropriate, marriage, kids, perfect social status, Chloe found a way to make it painful. Taking a deep breath, Leah reminded herself why she was attending this dinner. It wasn't to compete, or to argue, or to prove herself to anyone else. She was going because she wanted to keep the connection alive, fragile though it might be, with her parents. She wanted to be present, to show herself she could withstand the storm without breaking. She picked out a simple yet elegant dress, one that complemented her figure without screaming for attention. Her makeup was subtle, and her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Looking at her reflection, she whispered to herself, "You are enough. You always have been." Pulling up to the familiar driveway, Leah felt a pang of nostalgia. Memories of childhood birthdays, laughter echoing through the rooms, and Chloe stealing the spotlight flashed in her mind. She parked the car, smoothing the skirt of her dress, and stepped onto the porch. The front door swung open before she could knock. Chloe stood there, arms crossed, smirking firmly in place. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said, her tone dripping with mockery. "Did you even think about bringing a gift, or is your sad little life too busy to manage that?" Leah's stomach twisted, but she forced a polite smile. "Happy birthday to me, I suppose," she said softly, holding up the small gift she had brought. Chloe rolled her eyes and stepped aside, allowing Leah to enter. The familiar smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air, mixed with the faint scent of Chloe's perfume, overpowering and sharp, just like her personality. Leah's parents were seated in the living room, sipping wine. Karen, her mother, looked up, her eyes immediately scanning Leah from head to toe. "Oh, you're wearing that?" she said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Interesting choice." Leah's heart sank. She knew better than to expect support from her mother on appearances. Karen had always cared about the image of her children in public more than their actual feelings. Robert, her father, offered a small nod. "Glad you could make it, Leah," he said, his voice low, cautious, like he was trying to diffuse an inevitable confrontation. And then Chloe struck. "Still single? No husband, no kids," Chloe said, leaning against the doorway with her arms crossed. Her smirk widened. "Oh, right, you don't." Leah froze, the words slamming into her chest like a physical blow. Her own parents, laughed. Not a nervous chuckle or an uncomfortable clearing of the throat, but genuine laughter, warm and loud, as though Chloe had delivered the wittiest joke of the century. The room blurred around her. Her carefully maintained composure felt like it was shattering into tiny pieces. Every memory of past comparisons, every time Chloe had dismissed her choices or belittled her independence, rushed back in a flood. Leah tried to breathe, tried to respond with a smile or a joke, but no words came. Her throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. I came to celebrate," she managed to say, her voice barely audible over Chloe's laughter. "Oh, celebrate?" "Right. Celebrate being single forever," Chloe said, tilting her head in mock sympathy. Poor Leah, stuck with nothing but her spreadsheets and work files. How tragic. Leah felt like she was shrinking. Not physically, but emotionally. She was back in the corner of her childhood bedroom, 16 years old, crying silently after Chloe had thrown yet another one of her birthday parties in Leah's face, literally. And now, at 28, the scene was repeating, only worse. Her mother patted Chloe on the back, still chuckling. Well, she does have a point, Leah. Don't you? Her father's gaze flitted between the sisters, avoiding eye contact, saying nothing, offering no defense. Leah turned abruptly, excusing herself. I need some air, she murmured. Her legs moved automatically, carrying her out of the warm glow of the living room and into the cold night outside. Standing alone on the porch, the chill of the evening cutting through her dress, Leah tried to steady herself. She inhaled deeply, counting silently, willing her racing heart to calm. The laughter still echoed in her mind, Chloe's voice, her mother's approving snicker, the passive complicity of her father. She hated herself for feeling small, for letting their words pierce her. And yet, she couldn't stop the sting of betrayal. It wasn't just an insult. It was the truth of the moment. Her family had chosen to laugh at her, to reinforce the narrative she had spent years ignoring. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text from Mia, her best friend since college. Don't let them ruin your night. You're amazing. You know that, right? Leah smiled weakly, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Mia didn't know exactly what had happened tonight, but she knew Leah enough to understand the weight of family humiliation. She typed back, "Thanks. I'll be okay. Just give me a minute." Leah leaned against the railing, looking at the distant city lights twinkling below. Anger and hurt warred inside her, but beneath it all, a spark of determination ignited. "This doesn't define me," she whispered. "Not now, not ever." She realized something important. The humiliation, as painful as it was, also revealed the truth about her relationships with her family. They didn't see her accomplishments. They didn't respect her choices. But that didn't mean she was worthless. It meant she needed to focus on herself, on the life she wanted, and on the people who actually valued her. The cool night air cleared her head. She made a silent promise. The next time she faced Chloe, the next time she faced her parents' judgment, she would stand taller, stronger, and unshakable. Leah Morgan walked back into the house, not timidly, not ashamed, but with a quiet fire burning inside. The night wasn't over, and neither was her story. Leah Morgan woke the next morning with a strange mixture of exhaustion and resolve. The humiliation of last night still lingered in the edges of her mind, the sting of Chloe's words, the laughter of her parents, but instead of allowing it to consume her, she clutched it like a spark of fire. It was a reminder, she decided, that she could no longer allow her worth to be dictated by their narrow view of success. The first step was reclaiming her space. Leah threw herself into her work at the marketing firm, diving into campaigns with renewed energy. Every presentation, every client pitch became an opportunity to prove to herself, not to anyone else, that she was competent, intelligent, and capable of standing her ground in the world. She also rekindled her friendships, particularly with Mia, whose unwavering support reminded Leah that family wasn't always defined by blood. They met for long coffees, evening walks, and quiet dinners. Mia listened without judgment, laughed with her, and reminded Leah of her strength. "You're not broken, Leah. You're just underestimated," she said one night as they sat on Mia's apartment balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below them. Leah realized she had spent too long seeking validation from people who would never give it freely. With every decision she made for herself, every boundary she set, her confidence grew. She started a small personal blog about career challenges and life lessons, finding a new voice for herself that felt authentic, unapologetic, and powerful. And then there was Ethan, a colleague who had quietly admired Leah's intelligence and independence for months, finally crossed the line from professional to personal. Their connection was subtle at first, shared lunches, brief texts, and lingering conversations about work, but it blossomed naturally, free from the weight of expectations. Ethan didn't care if Leah was married or had children. He valued her for who she was. All these small victories added up. Leah felt herself changing. Not for Chloe, not for her parents, but for herself. The spark she had felt on the porch that night after her humiliation had grown into a steady flame. A month later, Leah received an invitation in the mail. It was from Chloe. Family brunch, Saturday noon. Be there. Don't disappoint us. Leah stared at the envelope for a long time. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, letting Chloe and her parents stew in their judgment. But something inside her whispered that this was her chance, not just for confrontation, but for demonstration. She would not return timidly. She would walk in confident, radiating strength, and show them that she was far more than their mockery could ever define. On Saturday morning, Leah prepared meticulously. Her dress was elegant, a deep emerald that complemented her skin tone, tailored perfectly to her figure. Her hair was smooth, cascading in soft waves, and her makeup accentuated her sharp cheekbones and confident eyes. But the most important change wasn't visible. It was in the way she carried herself. Every step was measured, every breath calm. She was no longer the girl who flinched at Chloe's words. She was a woman who knew her worth. As she drove to her parents' house, she rehearsed what she wanted to say. Not to attack, not to retaliate, but to assert herself, firmly and unapologetically. The house smelled the same as last time, familiar but different now that Leah felt like an entirely new person. Chloe stood at the doorway again, smirking in place, as if expecting the same timid reaction. Finally decided to show up, Leah, Chloe said, her voice laced with mockery. Leah smiled softly, but her eyes were steady, unwavering. I wouldn't miss it, she said, stepping inside with poise. The table fell silent as she seated herself. Chloe's smirk faltered slightly, sensing something different. Karen and Robert exchanged glances, unsure how to respond to this new Leah. Oh, you look successful, Chloe said hesitantly, her words an attempt to undermine Leah's presence. Leah smiled warmly but firmly. Thank you. I've been busy building a life I love. Husbands or kids aren't part of the plan right now, but happiness certainly is. The room went still. Her parents shifted uncomfortably. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it. She sputtered. Well, Leah interrupted gently. I'm not here to compete, Chloe. I'm here to celebrate family and myself. The words struck like lightning. There was no venom, no resentment, only undeniable confidence. For the first time, Chloe's teasing lacked power. Karen's laughter from last month felt miles away. Leah had reclaimed her story. The brunch continued, but the energy had shifted. Leah spoke confidently, shared small victories at work, laughed freely, and even engaged Ethan in conversation when he called to check on her mid-brunch. Chloe tried to regain control with subtle jabs, but Leah's calm strength deflected each one effortlessly. By the time brunch ended, Chloe was silent, her usual smirk replaced by awkward uncertainty. Karen and Robert, for the first time, seemed to see Leah not as the single, childless daughter but as a strong, independent woman. Leah realized she no longer needed their approval. She had already won. Later, walking back to her car, Leah felt a lightness she hadn't felt in months. The humiliation of last month still existed in memory, but it no longer defined her. She had transformed it into power, into clarity, into resilience. Leah knew life wouldn't always be smooth. Chloe would always have her sharp words. Her parents would have their biases. But Leah also knew one truth. She was no longer at their mercy. She had the power to shape her own life, to define her worth, and to demand respect. As she drove away from her childhood home, the sun glinting off her car, Leah smiled. Her heart was full, not with revenge, not with spite, but with confidence, freedom, and self-love. She had survived the storm of humiliation, and now she was stronger than ever. For Leah Morgan, this was just the beginning.